Aloha, and this is The Art of Life. That could mean only one thing. It's Friday, and we're broadcasting live here in the heart of Honolulu in Pioneer Plaza. I'm your host, Willow Chang. I'm going to do that once more to make sure that my hair doesn't get caught on the mic. And today, we have a returning guest as promised. So last year we had Danny Carvalho. I looked through the vault. It was in June of 2013. We had such a positive response, and as always, never enough time. And quite a few of our viewers said, when are you going to have Danny back again? Danny's very busy. However, we managed to nail him down to the table, and we've got him today. So Danny, welcome back.
Hi.
And for those of you who don't know, and if you don't, what are you waiting for? Written invitation? Danny Carvalho, singer, songwriter, musician, kihualu, slack key extraordinaire, among other things, local boy,
Yes.
and just touring madman. You've just been all over the place. Tell
Yeah.
us about it.
Well, last time was in June, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, since then I've been doing a lot of smaller, things on other islands and stuff. And I also did a thing to California during January. Came back from that, and I'm actually about to leave for another one next week, Saturday.
Do you have pets?
So I have one pet, yes.
Do
And,
they just hate you?
No, she loves me, so it's even worse.
Oh my goodness.
She just like, my mom will text me pictures while I'm away. Like, she'll text me pictures of the dog being like all depressed and mopey, and it's
They get mopey.
yeah, because I walk this dog like every day, and like it's a German Shepherd, and she's the most clingy German Shepherd that the most clingy 70-pound German Shepherd I've ever seen.
Think about that. Think about that.
It's a big 70-pound furry baby is what it is.
So tell us about your tours, because I think that this is something that people might find of interest. So you go on tours through different locales. I want to say Nashville. Weren't you in Nashville last year?
I wasn't in Nashville, unfortunately.
I'm just like making up stuff here on the spot. Okay, regardless, you travel with frequency, and this is to represent slack key music or Hawaiian music. Like, are you like an ambassador of sorts? Tell us
It's
about
mostly slack key work that
Okay.
I promote. I do other styles of music in my sets. I never completely stick to Hawaiian, but I do try to bring slack key with me everywhere I go. And the reason for that is because there aren't really that many people of my generation who can really say that they learned from the masters.
Right.
So, I always feel like, even if I'm writing, more pop songs, even if I'm writing, or even if I feel the creative urge to cover something more contemporary, I always feel like I have to represent the tradition because there aren't that many people who are going to do it. So
I couldn't agree more. Now, I wanted, you mentioned the masters, and for those of you out there who might be curious, because there is a lineage, as with any type of artistic pursuit or discipline, there's a lineage and you carry on and you're a conduit, even if you decide to do something different, as you mentioned. But tell us about who you had an opportunity to study with, because, gosh, I think we mentioned this in the last show, last year was kind of a banner year for all the wrong reasons. There were a lot of greats that passed on. So tell us who your mentors were.
Well, my primary teacher, my kumu, it's kind of like, you can't really call him a former kumu.
Never
That just
former,
doesn't work.
yeah.
No, they're just, there's no
Once
such
a
thing.
guru, always a guru.
Yes, once a kumu, always a kumu.
Yeah.
And his name is Ozzy Kotani, and he's a very, he's known for, being an excellent teacher. And his teacher was a man named Sonny Chillingworth, who was probably one of the most virtuosic slacky players of his time. He played with Gabi Pahinui in the Gabi Pahinui band. He was part of the families, the cowboy families on the Big Island. He was kind of in that circle, so to speak. And actually, we just got a chance to do a concert in honor of him. Makana invited me to play at Kahili Theater in a concert. The whole concert was a tribute to Uncle Sonny. So they had Auntie Nina, Kelly Vahamana was there, Uncle Sonny's cousin, Liebert Lindsay, joined us. His voice sounds just like Uncle Sonny. It's scary, but
Oh, good.
yeah. He sang Kala Ili, and then he sang a bunch of English versions that they would just like make up
On the fly.
cowboy style, and it was great. And they had this opening skit for the second half of the show where Liebert actually roped Makana and his guitar.
If you got the skills, you might as well
Hey,
use
you know
them.
what?
Hey,
You might as well.
we might have to learn how to do that.
Mm.
I'm curious, do you think there's a possibility where that type of show or tribute will make it over to Oahu? I mean, usually Oahu people, I think Outer Island people feel like we get all the good stuff and then they have to wait. But it's kind of interesting because that trend, I think, is actually kind of changing. Now you'll see that, the Big Island and
Yeah.
Hawaii and
Maui
Maui,
especially,
they'll get
yeah.
stuff and they'll just totally not even come
Like-
over to Oahu.
And then there's also not just Hawaiian tribute shows, but Willie K has this blues fest going on.
Right.
And yeah, you know what I think part of it is that I think it's kind of it's a pendulum thing if you think about it, because people on Oahu are used to having a lot of venues all around them, and they're used to having, so they tend to not make it as much of a point to turn out. They'll still love it when it happens, but they won't necessarily, it's happening all the time. But over there, it's like at least every time I go to another island, it's like, there isn't that much to do that's competing with, with your show.
I was
you
gonna
just
say, every crumb thrown is just gobbled up with delight. Yay!
Yeah, and it was even more so when I went to the mainland too, because I'm a musician from Hawaii. People
Right.
turned out, and I did not expect people to turn out with that much excitement for a Danny Carvalho show. Like, it was just totally caught me off guard.
Because I always love, this is like a true Hawaii phenomenon. So for Hawaii people, they know exactly what we're talking about. If you're not from Hawaii, well then you're gonna get educated. But I love, like, as a Hawaii person, whether you like it or not, and I actually revel in it like a pig in mud. I love being an ambassador and a unofficial spokesperson for Hawaii. But every person who ever has had anything affiliated with Hawaii is going to come up to you and say, oh, when I was stationed at Pearl Harbor 35 years ago, I used to go down to Waikiki, or my family always watched Hawaii Five-0 growing up,
Yes.
or, oh, my cousin went to UH Hilo. Like,
Magnum
everyone,
PI.
Magnum PI, like, I've got a Hawaii quarter in my wallet. Like, people just love
know.
to make the Hawaii connection. It's kind of killer.
It's they always, like, if they have one, they nurture it and they cherish it a lot. It's really fascinating. And I've come across a lot more commonalities too because of the diversity of my show.
Right.
I play slack key, but I also honor my Japanese heritage every time I perform. Well, every time I perform for an audience that's listening, but every time somebody's listening, I'll pull out the song for my grandfather, and I'll get somebody who fought in World War II, or I'll get somebody who
42nd.
Or yes,
Yeah.
Actually, so I did this one concert for a halal up there, and then I found out after doing the song that her father was in the 100th, as well as my grandfather was in the 100th too, which is as much. There are much less of those left because of the nature of that whole how that whole battle played out. It was like they had the 100th first, they lost too many men, and then the 442nd got sent in to accompany them. But this lady's father was from the 100th, I think, in a different company for my grandfather. But
What a small world.
yeah, so
What
the
are
Kumuhula.
chances? That's totally random.
Yeah, and I was talking to her later. It's like, yeah, I grew up in Palolo, and I was like, he was from Kaimuki, like.
It makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Hey, since we've last saw you, how's this for a segue? Grammys. The Grammys just happened.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk shop with you from one musician to another.
Yes.
Okay, and it just random things that popped into my mind as
So
I was
many random
walking
things.
to.
This
to
is
the
an
show.
interesting. This is an interesting year for music.
Yeah, okay, in no particular order. Let's talk Sam Smith, because I
He cleaned up.
personally, well, not only did he clean up, but okay, so one of the big stinks that just like launched right before the Grammys was this lawsuit.
Oh,
That
the whole
was
Tom
a
Petty
polite
thing.
lawsuit that was filed in a so-called gentlemanly fashion where they just agreed out of
Extremely
court
gentlemanly fashion.
that apparently Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne, we've got to thank
Yeah,
Jeff Lynne,
yeah, you
because I mean,
gotta
I love the
put him in
guy
there.
with ELO, but they claim that their song Won't Back Down,
Yeah.
recorded by Tom Petty, they thought bore a striking musical resemblance to Sam Smith's big breakout hit, Stay With Me. Now, I mean, what happens is, I think once you hear those two and you hear it enough, you just link them together. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't say it was as compelling as, say, when you had Blurred Lines and Marvin Gaye. Like,
And
that,
even that, like, I wasn't really. I mean,
this is not like My Sweet Lord.
to me, the biggest thing that Blurred Lines had in common with the Marvin Gaye song was the drum line.
That was
You know,
Robin Thicke.
Right. So the drum line was very evocative of
And the bass.
that particular song. And
Walking
the
bass,
bass.
descending walking bass.
But the chord structure of the song was different. The melody was different. And to me, it's like, you know, you can. I find it to be a very sticky issue because, you know, especially being in a style of music where tributing, you know, where throwing cues to the past is so prevalent.
Yeah.
I mean, we won't just, you know, tribute the past in a new song. We'll, like, just keep covering the same song for over 100 years.
Brown-eyed girl.
There's that one, but then there's also, I mean, there's, you know, songs that the Queen wrote that we're still singing today.
true.
It's like over 100 years ago.
Hold that thought. Over 100 years ago,
Yeah.
the omniscient voice of God says, we must break to commercial. Stay tuned, because we're going to keep coming back about music talk and the Grammys here on The Art of Life.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. You know, Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
You know, sometimes the best part of our show is when we cut away to break. So just to fill you in, we were talking about the undeniable, unforgettable sensation. If you've ever had a B-52 large cockroach about this size, that's how big we grow them here in Hawaii, and that's on the small side, crawling
to
up
the
your
tropics.
body. Welcome to the tropics, the subtropics. So, okay, so we both kind of feel that we weren't really hearing or feeling the Sam Smith, Tom Petty supposed similarity in the music or the structure.
Well, I feel like, you know, the thing is that there are 8 notes in a scale. There's
yeah, let's say
13
in the-
notes, and there's
In the
only so many
Occidental
chords.
scale, yeah, there's only, if you're working like with, say, Middle Eastern music, Arabic music, Indian music, where you've got
Yeah, well, Indian
quarter
music, you
tones
have
and ragas and
Yeah.
maqams, like you've got many more
mathematically
options.
many more options. But when
Yeah.
you're working with, and especially with pop music, because for however many chords there are, there's only so many that'll work together and actually have popular appeal.
Pachelbel canon.
So, right. So everything's a rehash of Pachelbel canon, basically. And, you know, you're going to do the same thing twice. Nobody's idea is completely original anymore because it can't be. It's mathematically impossible.
Maybe
So-
not in 2015.
Yeah, maybe not in 2015. You know, the Beatles came up with some great stuff, but
Yeah.
then, you know, ever since then, you know,
But then even then, the Stones were in the same time period, and they were just ripping and riffing. Did I say ripping? But they were actually doing both. Off of like the whole catalog of American Delta blues. I mean, a
Right.
lot of that stuff.
And then there's
is-
the Little Richard, and then there's, I mean,
Oh.
Elvis doing Little Richard. But to me,
Beach
it's like,
Boys.
I think what happens is, you know, producers and writers both find things that have worked. And they
sure
just
there's
run with them because
computer programs now that probably just isolate. I mean, the whole reason why
Well-
something like Spotify can work is they're trying to find what songs sound similar. So if you like Giorgio, you'll love Primo.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did the computer thing for country music.
Oh,
but-
did you see that video making the rounds?
Yes.
So in case you haven't seen this, and we will post this, some individual posted 5 unique different country pop music songs, played them all simultaneously. You can see it. And my goodness, they all sound like the same song. It was terrifying.
And I mean, I was not surprised at all when I saw that because I listen to country radio from time to time, and it's
This is probably why Taylor Swift booked
it's
it out
very
of country.
but pop is formulaic too. They just switch up the drums a little more. They'll use different drum sounds, and like if you listen to a Lord album, you know what I mean. But they have a lot more tricks in their arsenal because it's okay for the music to sound electronic.
Speaking of
But
Lorde,
they're still being fairly formulaic about
what happened to Lorde? She was everywhere last year,
it.
and
She
then
was everywhere.
and then
Well, she's
she
still
just-
on the radio everywhere.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I
well,
listened to college radio.
well, I was asking that question about Bruno Mars until Uptown Funk came out, and then all of a sudden, boom, gold
Boom.
hair curlers everywhere.
It was Bruno Mania.
You have,
Okay.
you have the little boy on Ellen DeGeneres with the gold hair curlers. It's like.
Okay, here's question number 2. So now we know that Hawaiian music used to have its own specific category. In fact, many types of what they like to call world music had their own unique categories. And then some genius decided to consolidate it, and then just smush everything together in one category, which not only lessens the exposure to indigenous or unique types of music, but also people who don't have a point of reference, if they don't know what they're listening to, they probably have a lesser chance of even taking home that award. Now, granted, not every musician or artist does something to take home an award or a statuette, but if you're in a competitive field, who wants to lose? So it just seems like every year it's Zydeco now that
Right.
wins, and I'm not hating on Zydeco because Cajun music is its own indigenous, interesting fusion form of art.
Well, it's
but-
indigenous to America. It's
Yeah.
American culture. I think the thing that Hawaiian music will always run up against is that it's really, I mean, yes, legally we're part of America, but practically we're part of
legally
America.
we may not be part of America.
Right. So that whole debate aside, though, culturally, Hawaiian culture has nothing to do with America. Culturally, our music is totally different. We speak a different language. And it predates American culture by at least a few hundred years. So, of course, Cajun music is going to be more well represented in the Grammys. The bulk of the Grammy voting of the NARA's voting body is much more identified with that culture than it's going to be with ours. We're not even speaking their language. So
Exactly.
I'm not as much surprised at that, but I also feel like the Grammys, as an institution, as in awards, it is a very specific community of people voting based on the names they recognize and the cultures, the subcultures of America that they identify with.
That sounds like our election process.
Right. So, well, a little more narrow though, because, if you notice, because I'm very, I keep up with a lot of different sub-communities today. I follow hip hop culture like almost religiously, and they always complain about how they're not really well represented in the Grammys either. And if you go into R&B, it's the same thing. If you go into, to me, it's like the only category that feels like it's really well represented in the Grammys is rock, but because of the demographic.
But
To
even
me,
with
though-
rock, I think, the distinction between rock and heavy metal, so there is one, because
Yes,
every year
yes.
the heavy metal people are like, how can Tenacious D win? This year it was
Well, that's-
Tenacious
well,
D, they were all mad about
yeah,
that. And I was
yeah.
like, okay, maybe Jack Black isn't necessarily heavy metal, but at least the guy's got pipes.
Yeah,
I
but to
mean-
me, whenever I follow the hip hop scene, because I don't know if you're keeping up with that, but Iggy Azalea has been a huge controversy in that scene, and she's not the first at all. To me, I don't see the situation for Hawaiian music in the Grammys I don't see ourselves becoming more well represented just by creating a category,
Right.
because the voting body is still out of touch with, with our reality. And to me, as much as I love watching them and keeping up, and as much as they're still, a very, they're still the most prestigious award any musician can get,
Mm-hmm.
I find it hard to allow myself to place too much personal hope in the results reflecting, what's important to us in our tradition, because it can't. It's not necessarily.
It's like the deck is kind of stacked
The
against us.
the deck is kind of, not that it's inherently stacked against us, but
Or intentional. It just
it just is. They're not connected to our reality. So
Yeah.
of course the results are going to be different than we'd like, at least. Yeah.
I think maybe it really begs the question of like this idea. The Grammys this year, like most of these award shows, there's these 3-hour extravaganzas. That's just what gets barfed up on television. I mean, they have all of these things and these separate meetings and these separate awards, and they'll make announcements. But the stuff that you see that's prime time, they want to have Gwen Stefani and they want to have Maroon 5, et cetera, et cetera. But it's
And
like,
they're both on The Voice. Let's put them in the same show.
let's talk about ratings.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe it would just behoove them. I mean, it's segregation, but maybe it would have a better chance of having visibility. Like, why not have just the show where you have the gospel and the Tejano music and the Hawaiian music, and just call it like Global Music Awards? I mean, I do understand that it's not under the same umbrella, but if we're trying to educate people, if we're trying to create awareness, which I think that's part of the purpose of the Grammys is education, it seems like they do a huge disservice when the Grammys gets to a point where it's indistinguishable from the People's Choice Awards or the American Music Awards or the Billboard Music Awards. All of these award shows on TV, they have this opportunity to really make a name for themselves and differentiate themselves, and I feel like they just kind of blow it. I mean, I think one of the most radical things that they did that evening was Pharrell Williams did Happy. He reworked it. Did you see that? It was
He reworked
killer.
it, and he even fit the hands up into it.
And he put the hands up in it. He reworked it in a minor key, and then he had
He
Lang
made it sound
Lang.
not so happy.
Yeah, and then he had Lang Lang rocking out on the piano, and I was like, that was pretty cool, and that was innovative, and that was interesting.
Well, you can always trust Pharrell to do something different.
Yeah. And he had a different kind of, he had the little bell pop
capris
outfit.
with a bow tie, like.
Yeah. But aside from that, it was kind of, I mean, there were musically sound performances which were great. ELO was great.
ELO was great. I absolutely loved Common and John Legend.
They did a good job.
I mean, I like the song. I like what they're doing. I like the fact that they're using their platform as an opportunity to, say something important. Because to me, that's the biggest thing, is when you get that big of a platform and you don't use that opportunity to respect the culture that got you there in the first place. And to me, that's where you see the difference between the people who end up, gaining acceptance in their own area of roots versus the people who alienate their home base. There is a difference, and the difference is in how they use the spotlight once it's on them. So I feel like that duty kind of comes, to me, the duty comes with the territory. That doesn't mean everybody does it.
That's true. This is true. Did you watch the shows? Were they of interest to you? It's interesting because I confess, I grew up in the time period, life before the internet. I know this is called ThinkTech Hawaii, but I mean, goodness, when they had these award shows, TV had an opportunity to really galvanize people and to bring people together, whether that's the moon landing. Yes, that was before me. I'm not that old. The moon landing, or Nixon sweating it up on during the debates, or people watching the last episode of Dallas, or all of these really kind of ridiculous but fun things where people would literally watch the TV and talk about it at the water cooler. And now when you have things like Netflix and web, podcasts and all these different things, not as many people watch. And so
They still talk about it.
They still talk
afterward.
about it.
It's like the internet has become our water cooler.
Yeah, I guess Twitter's...
Twitter has become a water cooler.
But
and
then it's
the
like,
articles, the
I
blog
talk to
articles.
my students the next day, and they're these cute little 15-year-olds, you know, and I'll be like, okay, who watched the Grammys yesterday? And I mean, I'll have like 10 kids, and not a single one of them watch, not even out of like morbid curiosity, not even to see what mom and dad or Tutu are watching.
But they'll still know what happened by social media. That's the funny thing.
Kind of, sort of, small kind.
So now it's like if you want to know what people are talking about, then you almost still have to watch. It's kind of it's a very interesting time.
It is. As the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times. Whatever that means. That could mean almost everything. It says interesting is the great adjective.
It's a PC way of saying almost anything you want to.
It is. It's like n. If you remember your algebra, it's like an. It's a variable. I was like, is that an integer? No, it's a variable. Damn it. It was a very long time ago, but.
It was much less long for me, and it took me longer to remember it. So.
Think about your math. How frequently do you use it other than balancing your checkbook or your taxes? We're going to take a small break. This is The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Aloha, Yappers. This is your host, Kingsley, for the Yap Show. Every Friday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us here live, ThinkTech Hawaii, and then later on, we upload to our YouTube channel. We talk about youth issues, policies, youth programs, and how to transition yourself into adulthood.
But this was like a sign, I guess. Hey, life's like, hey, right. Now's your chance to go back to school, which I'm doing.
Catch us here again live, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha.
Aloha. It's The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang Leon. Now, we do know sometimes you just can't cut away and watch the internet at work. You have to make it look like you're actually earning your paycheck. So you can catch us with our archival files on YouTube, also on ThinkTech Hawaii, or on the Art of Life with Willow Chang page on Facebook. And if you haven't liked us, well, this is me politely begging for your like. Click like. All the information's there, all the photos and the information and the doodads. And I go like a happy little groundhog and I find information that we've discussed and I put links to videos or flyers for the events that my guests are having or vanity pictures or whatever it is that we talk about. So you can enrich your conversation and find out more about what's been discussed. Okay, I'm babbling at this point. We got Danny Carvalho in the hot seat. We were talking shop about the Grammys, and during the break, so I'm going to reveal, we were talking about some of our favorite little websites that we like to go to. We were duking it out between BuzzFeed and one that I was unfamiliar with.
Complex.
Complex.
I like just following a lot of different things and seeing how different people are talking about it.
Absolutely. You know, one of my favorites is The Root.
Oh, yes.
And always
Slate.
The Root. Slate kind of leans a little more on the snark factor.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of anything
yeah.
snarky. That's me.
They should just call themselves like Contrarians Anonymous.
Yeah,
instead of Slate.
That would actually, yeah, you know what, you better patent that idea.
I know. I'm trademarking it right now. But, you know, I think that's like one of the things I do appreciate about the internet is that option to go get out of your comfort zone and read different opinions or listen to different music. So I'm going to confess this. This is going to sound so hokey, but what was it? One day, like for some reason, believe it or not, many moons ago, I went to a Nas concert. I know you find it hard to believe. I was in San Francisco and I was gifted some free tickets, and it's
well, that's
like,
rootsy of you.
Why not? I know, right? Woo! And it was actually a really good concert. And so, just out of curiosity, I went on YouTube and I was like, you know what? I should just like listen to something, just something random. I like opened up a video, typed in Nas, listened to some video, and then you just let it play.
Yeah.
Because that's like the poor man's radio. And it's amazing the rabbit hole that you go down when you just put something on YouTube and you see where it takes you. And you can learn about some cool things, like stuff that
Like
no
you might also like.
Yeah. If you like Giorgio, you'll love Primo. You may not remember that, but those are like the designer imposter fragrances.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't want to like throw 50 clams on buying like the real deal, you get like the $9.99 version at Woolworths. Oh, how I miss you, Woolworths. So what else do you like to do to mix it up?
Speaking of throwbacks, Liberty House.
Oh, there you go. Which always had like its own unique smell.
I know, yeah.
It was a Liberty House smell. It was wonderful. What kind of things do you like to do? So here's the thing, like, there's what, that was my phone talking to me. Bad girl, bad host. There's the things that you're known for, but then there's all the stuff that also supports that. So there's the people that you've studied with. There's, oh, Danny Carvalho, he does kihualu, he's slack key, but you do many other things, just like I do other things other than belly dance. But for a lot of people, they may only know me in the context of belly dancing. So they'll say, oh, so now you're a singer? When did you start singing? It's like, I've been singing since I was 9. That's like a long time ago.
It is a long time. I mean, it's a long time to be doing anything as soon as you hit your 20s. Like.
Yeah, exactly. So what other things do you like to do to mix it up? We just heard that you confessed that you like that rap music.
Yeah, well, actually, keeping up with that is a good, that takes up a good part of my day.
Are you gonna like throwing down some rap with like the slack key?
That would be a tough sell. But I will say that just keeping up with that culture is a challenge because it's so fast moving. Things are changing so constantly. I don't think there's any other culture that invents new slang words that quickly.
Yeah.
And you can be all disgruntled about it and say, no, I want to use proper English. But, it's happening. And I find it fascinating to keep up with. So that's one thing.
I still say word. And some people are like,
word.
I'm not as hip as you are with your lingo. And I'm like, that's like 25 years ago. W-E-R-D, like word up. Okay.
Yeah. But it's like, so that's one thing. I also enjoy, just within Hawaii, there's a lot of things that I really love. I occasionally go back and visit my friends at the Voyaging Society at Hokulea.
Yeah.
Because I took a 5-year break from music while I was in college. And during that break, I got involved with the Polynesian Voyaging Society. I got involved with teaching Hawaiian culture at Pono School. I did a lot of different things during that time that really kind of enriched my view of the music I was playing. And so every once in a while, I like to go back and visit those too, and try to help out in any way I can. So that's one thing.
Well, leg 2 of their voyage is pretty
leg
killer.
2,
They were just talking about it on KITV4.
They're at the Indian Ocean. I know they're
Marquesas.
Marquesas. They're in last I heard they were in New Zealand. I'm not sure if they may have left since
Killer
then,
stuff, man.
Yeah.
For those of you uninitiated, you gotta look it up, Hokulea. And I've talked about this when I go and teach hula abroad. It's something when I have the culture class because, yes, you have to sit through the culture class. No, you're not going to just take the hula class because you have to hear me yak about all of these points of references. And that was so instrumental to planting seeds with the Hawaiian Renaissance. I mean...
not just in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I mean, Hokulea inspired a lot of Polynesian cultures, around the Pacific Rim because it brought back something for them to be proud of as well. Voyaging is not just a Hawaiian thing; it's pan-Polynesian. Otherwise, Hawaiians would have never gotten here.
Yeah.
So,
it's a very large canoe.
It's a very
and voyaging, navigating simply through the stars and the elements of understanding all of those things.
Yeah. So, what was the most fascinating thing was when they got to New Zealand. I was following it online, of course, not being there, and there were so many stories about the protocols that they were exchanging, and and then everybody comes back and I get to hear little tidbit stories about about what happens on the dock after hours, and it's very, it's just the fact that Hokulea's existence has reconnected Pacific Islanders to each other, I think, more than any one project has ever done. And for that reason, I'll always celebrate it, and I'll always try to put my weight behind it when I can. So that's another thing I like to keep up with. I also love carving, too.
Tell me, is this
Yes.
yours?
This one? Yes, this is mine. This is mine. This is my most recent one.
I had a feeling.
I haven't been in the workshop in a little while, but
Can we, oh, our camera person is gone. Can you lean in towards the camera? Show us your wares.
yeah. Oh, there she is. There she
There
is.
she is.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So I have my mic clipped onto it. But
Tell us about it. What type of
it is-
element is that?
This is actually a very contemporary element. It is.
You're like, it's spam.
It's not. It's not quite. It's kind of like.
Oops.
It's kind of like the spam of mineral-based materials.
Is it
It's called
jadeite?
corian.
Okay.
It's they use it for countertops.
Wow.
It's 75% mineral, and the remainder of that,
Is
the remainder of
animal.
its composition is basically adhesive to bind it together.
Okay.
But it behaves a lot like bone when you're working with it, so it has the same density, the same, but it comes in these colors, and one of them is a jade type of a color, and then they have another one that looks more like marble, and then they have some wacky colors like bright orange and
As if you're
pink,
walking
hot
across the
pink.
street in a dark night.
Yeah. And they have black too. They have black too. So they have the stone-based colors. I think this one came from scraps from a work site,
Fantastic.
and then I reworked it into something more decorative.
I'm going to share with you like just a random, I think they used to call these like factoids in the 90s, and then people realized that word should never be used again, but I'm going to use it today. But an interesting factoid that I came across was about the Hawaiian fishing hook. And forgive me, I don't know the proper term. If there probably is a name, and I don't know what it is.
Macau?
A what?
Macau?
What he said.
Macau.
That it's the most effective type of fish hook out there.
Really?
They said that like this is the one. Like if you want to catch the big fish, you want to get the fish, that's the one. Now I'm gonna have to do a Google search on that and find the article.
Maybe,
But
yeah.
it's
I'd like
interesting.
to see that. I will say though that once you finish making one, you never really want to use it for fishing unless you're starving. But it's like,
You don't
"Oh,
want
this took
that
me
nice
3 days."
aroma around your neck.
This took me
Wafting.
3 days. I don't want to have to cut the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love making them though. It's actually there was one time when I made one. I was preparing for a concert and I made one in my prep time rather than practicing. And the music was very spontaneous that night, but I had something nice to wear. So
Exactly. So I'm wondering, do you think you'll make that leap now that you're carving the fish hook? Do you ever think of like shaping your own guitar?
the guitar, huh? You mean like actually making one,
Yeah,
or like a real one?
making it.
I have actually I've thought of that before I started carving, because my first guitar for many years was made by my dad. That was my main guitar. It was my main guitar until I started traveling a lot, and then I didn't want to take that on a United flight and throw it in baggage.
There's a Facebook page dedicated just to all of the instrument-related fiascos with United. We're not trying to bash anybody. It's just the reality.
Yeah, it's not just them. It's just anytime you throw something in with a ton of suitcases, you risk something happening to it, and they can. I think the courts just ruled that it's, they just made some sort of a ruling on that law that
I
just passed
saw
for
that.
it. But I'm a little skeptical. I'm gonna see how it plays out. I always try to carry the instrument on, but.
So what do you do, Danny? Come on, give us some, what's your approach?
Me?
Do you play shy local boy, or do you flirt, or do you give them a CD?
Flight
How do you
attendants?
grease the wheels?
I do the
You just act like you don't know.
no. Well, I do the hold it in a way that it doesn't look so big.
Okay.
Just like cheat it to this side if the flight attendant's here. It's like, yep, thank you. And I also find sometimes it helps to show up with like absolutely nothing else. I'll show up with like a little bag with my essentials.
Hopefully you have some clothes on.
And yeah, but like I've given up trying to get both a carry-on suitcase and the guitar.
You don't have like the omiyagi, the backpack, the rolling bag, and then the guitar, and then try to get on.
Check almost everything and then travel light. That's really, because it gets tiring, in the bigger airports especially. You don't want to be running with all of that.
Yeah.
There was one time I had to run between terminals and, or like we were starting to run, and then, thank goodness this shuttle golf cart thing comes by and picks us up because like the flight was about to leave. And I think this was in Dallas. But, stuff like that, it's like, I don't want to be carrying a lot. So.
Yeah. I would say, ladies, you wear the flat shoes, and for the dancers, always, 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 one more for good luck, always pack your costume onto the carry-on bag. Don't even think of checking that on. If you check it on, you're gonna cry, if not sooner or later. You wanna have your costume, because you can always go buy some clothes at the Gap if they lose your suitcase.
Yeah.
But you need your essentials, whatever that is.
You need your essentials, and I always wear the shoes.
Yep.
I wear the shoes.
You wear the heavy shoes.
The heaviest
pack them in your
shoes
suitcase.
and the ones that you can run in if you need to really hoof it.
Oh my God. Well, we've got to hoof it out of here because they're going to have the Yap Show on after us. But Danny, it's always a pleasure. You brought your axe. We didn't even get you to play.
Yes.
So that will be the third time's a charm. We'll have you again. That's a promise.
Okay.
And we have it recorded so you can say, but you said on that show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
and
it's great to be
we'll
here
put a
again.
link to your site so everyone can check you out. Anything up and coming in the immediate future that we can come and hear you?
Depends on where you're listening from. In Honolulu, I don't have any major concerts coming up on the map. I'll probably be working out something for the summer in that department. I'm going to be in California in a couple of weeks, so if you know anybody in south half of the Bay, or then I'll be doing a show in Monterey on, I believe it's the 14th.
Fantastic.
It's 14th to Friday. Yeah, I think it's a Friday, close to the 14th of March.
Sounds good. Well, hopefully you can check out Danny. And this is The Art of Life. Keeping it Pono.